Good afternoon. What many of us don't realize is that life is made up of just a handful of extremely important 10-second moments. For example, most major decisions that we make and most very meaningful things that happen to us really only last 10 whole seconds. Like that. Like those 10 awkward seconds between Fred and I right there. Those really matter. What you don't realize is that 10-second period was actually the same amount of time that it took for me to compete and stick my vault at the 2024 Olympic Games for Team USA. What many of you didn't see, though, were the 20 years of hard work and purposeful time spent just to have a chance at competing in that moment.
Now, we have roughly 4 years in college. That's 126,144,100 1-second periods. That's a whole lot of 10-second periods. Now, that can feel like an infinite amount of Olympic-level moments to create, but that could also feel like an infinite amount of Olympic-level moments that could be wasted. Just as Paul spent those 10 seconds in Paris, 10 seconds is passing us by in all our lives all the time. And if we're not careful, 20 years could pass by, and we can end up exactly where we started. As a great poet, Aubrey Drake Graham, once said, "Everybody dies, but not everybody lives."
Now, I remember the very first time that I arrived to this very campus here in Ann Arbor. I was driving on Highway I-94, and I got off on exit 177. I was in the passenger seat of my mom's baby blue Honda Civic, and I had just about every single article of clothing fit into the trunk. As I came onto campus, I saw all Block M's. I saw big Block M's, small Block M's, old ones and brand new ones. And all that I thought was, I've got 4 years to make something of myself. Probably some of the questions that I asked were, what classes will I take? What major will I pursue? What will be my impact on the gymnastics team? And of course, who will my new friends be? But Paul, slow down. You've got 4 years to worry about the answers to those questions. Don't stress yourself out right now. And then, in the blink of an eye, you're walking across the graduation podium thinking, where did that time go? And what would I do differently? Maybe it was the long practices, maybe it was all the championships, but sure, the days felt like eternity, but the years flew by. And some people talk about appreciating assets in this world. A lot of people debate. I would say there's only one, and it's our time. Spencer Burden, a renowned real estate professional that teaches online lectures, talks about different lessons that he's learned over the years. I participate in these lectures as I'm early in my career, and I want to learn a lot. And one important lesson that he talked about that I've kept with me ever since was this lesson that he talked about when he was a young land broker. He was offering millions of dollars above the next to highest purchase price to this elderly farmer for his land. When the farmer declined, Spencer learned a lesson that many of us don't realize until it's far too late. The farmer told Spencer, there is no amount of money that I would take in order to sell my home. I'm not going to spend the last few years of my life negotiating the sale of where I live. And Spencer learned in that moment that the value of his time was more important than the value of any additional dollar. You see, when we're young, all that we think about is that we have 85 years to worry about our impact, to worry about our purpose, or how we're going to change the world. Today, I have to make money. But clearly, in the farmer's case, at some point along his life, his time became way more important than any additional dollar. And to be just a little bit grim, on the last day of our lives, when we're sitting there on our deathbed, hopefully grateful, all of us would pay an infinite amount of money to just live one more day. So that tells me that at some point, that equation flips. That the value of any additional time spent alive and the value of our time in general eclipses the value of any additional dollar. If we spent life that way and we lived that way, I promise you that we would all have a lot less what-ifs and a lot more gratitude. Now, Fred, you realized very quickly that you didn't have an infinite amount of time in college. How did you hit the ground running and why?
Yeah. I came knowing I had a finite amount of time. This is because I decided I had 4 years to build something that by the time I graduate, I'd get to chase it fully. I came up with this idea during COVID. We all lived during the COVID times, and I had so much time to just be at home thinking, at home scrolling on social media. And I saw how many different ways of life people were living. Some people worked 9 to 5s, others owned their own businesses. And there were people sharing content on social media for their career. And then, of course, there were professional athletes giving everything to their sport and having so much success with that. So I thought to myself, surely I could pick and choose the best parts of each of these careers, put them together, and make it for myself so that way, honestly, I just wouldn't be bored. This is the decision I made, and it was probably the second most sure decision I ever made, second to starting gymnastics. But I knew that going this path would have an extremely low chance of success unless I gave it everything. So from the minute I hit campus, I hit the ground running, giving it everything. This meant not as many classic college experiences, a lot more time in the gym, a lot more time prepping for big competitions or the next big moment. And then, just like Paul said, you snap your fingers and I'm graduating in just 2 months. Wow. And I still remember when I first came to campus, I had this one pretty clear goal. It was, I want to get recognition and respect for my sport, gymnastics. I want to be seen on the same level as the basketball players and the football players here on campus. There's just one problem. We do gymnastics. Not as many people are paying attention or care much about gymnastics. At the U.S. Championships, which is the biggest gymnastics event in the U.S. every year, oftentimes competing, the crowds were basically empty. But then this thing called social media showed me things could be different. 10,000 people could be watching me any day, creating content that I wanted to do for fun. When I realized this, I said, hold on a second. I got to lean more into this. I kept going and then hit 100,000 people. You're telling me now a whole football arena is watching me just do the sport that I love every day. This is everything I wanted, to get the sports scene, to get eyes on me, doing what I love. So I leaned in even more at this. And the content, of course, gymnastics and school, everything has paid me back 10x since I started college, now that I'm about to graduate. And yes, it took a lot of hard work, dedication to get it all done, to handle it. But the biggest thing it took was belief. Belief that I could go a path that I hadn't seen anybody else go before. Belief that I could be more than just a student and just an athlete in these 4-year periods in college. Belief that I had a purpose and I was inching a little bit closer to this purpose every day. And then, when people told me, Fred, just stick to gymnastics, just focus on school, these are the only 2 things you need, I instead decided to trust my gut, decided to do more. And when the world of NIL opened up, which meant athletes could make money off their name, image, and likeness, everything aligned. Now I could be more than just a student and an athlete. Now I can pursue everything I felt my purpose was, from writing a children's book, or raising $70,000 for kids to get equipment in Africa, or inventing a new uniform in gymnastics. All of this became possible while still in college. But the biggest reason is because I started believing that we could just be more than just students and just athletes. And now, again, I graduated in 2 months. My journey is not even, I feel like it's just starting. I feel like I finally found my purpose in college, found my calling, and now I'm going all in at it because this is what I did in those 4 years to set myself up.
Now, if I can be totally vulnerable with everybody, very honest, I've got one major what if, and it's just that, what Fred just talked about, NIL. You see, I didn't come to college with the idea of building a personal brand. That wasn't commonplace when I came here. I came here with the same lessons that I had growing up, which were work hard, be a good person, and let the results speak for themselves. And while although I have achieved a great deal in my sport, I didn't get to create that sizable impact that I see people like Fred have. When I look at different personalities and large sports figures or different social media stars that have built large personal brands, I believe it's admirable, remarkable, and definitely respectable. When they have a strong purpose and a vision and a mission, and they believe in it, and then they build this large platform to push and promote that message, you can do great things, and they do. They move mountains, and they can make waves, and I have no doubt that Fred will continue to do that. When I got to campus, I spent all about 10 seconds thinking about other people. I came to campus all about me. And who could blame me? When you grow up in gymnastics, it's not like other team sports. You only grow up thinking, what place did I get in the all-around? What scores did I get? And did I get a personal best? And I brought that with me into college. And I realized that I wanted one thing. I wanted to win the NCAA all-around national championship. That would mean that I'm the best gymnast in the NCAA. That was my purpose. That was my mission. I promise you that's a high, fast probability of a highway to disappointment. In 2022, though, I got everything that I ever wanted. I was standing just about 80 feet and 10 seconds away from this eventual national championship. I saluted the judge, I ran down the vault runway, I hit the table, I did my vault, and I stuck the landing. The crowd erupted. Everybody was screaming. I ran back, I hugged my coaches, my teammates. I was crying, everybody's crying. This is the best moment of my life, I thought. I did my entire purpose in this moment. But something really weird happened. When they called my name up to raise the trophy over my head, and they said, Paul Juda, all-around national champion from Michigan, I felt alone. And I looked to my left and I looked to my right. None of those same people that helped me achieve my goal were standing there with me. And I had my Spencer Burden moment. I realized that any additional individual accolade seemed to not matter anymore. But I looked at the amount of time that I had spent in college with the wrong, so to say, purpose, and I realized there was not a lot of time left. And I now saw how valuable a team championship would be. From that moment forward, I promised myself every single thing that I did was going to be so that the people that helped me achieve my own goal would now know what it feels like to ride home on the bus with an NCAA trophy. That experience is what I started to chase. And let me tell you, when you bond with those kinds of people and you set a purpose that's bigger than yourselves, incredible things are possible. Thank you. Those experiences are what matter the most. And I'll be honest, I'll let you all in on a little bit of secret about the Olympic medal. It ends up just sitting on your counter, collecting dust every time I look at it. And that happens with all these trinkets. I promise you, in our case, there's always an additional individual accolade that you can collect. There's always another trinket that you can buy. But the experiences, those brotherhood, and those moments, those things, can't put a price on that.
I agree, Paul. I feel like these experiences while going after our goals through these 4 years have changed us so much and helped me grow a lot. But a big question I ask is, has it all been worth it? To be honest with you guys, I haven't really felt like a student athlete all of these years. I've spent so much time focusing on the next big thing. I feel like I missed out on a lot of these normal student lives and moments. I remember the first week I came to campus. That week I felt like a student. That was called Welcome Week. I remember leaving the swim house at 1 a.m. with my teammates, and we'd go on an insomnia cookie run. And the goal was to find ice cream. And on these journeys, we'd see the craziest things, from students falling into bushes or stumbling into their Ubers, or just groups having fun and singing out loud. It was fun. It was amazing. But the real power of these nights and moments was the relationships that you build with your teammates and friends. You know, the special moments that you just can't recreate in any other situation, the special bonds that you make with these people. You know, I feel like I missed out on a lot of these. And as I started focusing on bigger goals, bigger accolades, I obviously was not going to be caught after midnight anywhere. But now I was just the one opening our Snapchat group chat messages to see the moments that my teammates were creating, the amazing moments that they'd share with each other, the bonds that I couldn't help but thinking I would never get, or I'd never get back because I spent my time doing something else. So the big question is, when you spend your time with purpose in college, which purpose do you go after? Do you go after the big accolades, the resume builders, the status, the medals, or do you go after the special moments, the special relationships with those that matter most to you? Honestly, I believe both of these are equal and both of these are important, but only if one thing is true. As long as you truly feel like you are a part of something bigger than yourself. You see, when I went on this social media journey, I felt like I was building a brand. I was reaching thousands of people and inspiring thousands of people. I felt like I was growing the sport of gymnastics. It felt so much bigger than me. And then when I went to the Olympics and went after an NCAA championship, just like Paul said, it starts to become more about getting your teammates to win. You see so much of the work that they put in every single day. You want them to win so badly. You want your country to win. You want your college to stand on top of that podium. Every time I feel like I'm serving something much bigger than myself, time flies, I'm able to push way harder, and at the end of it, when you do get that success, you have people to share it with.
And so, as I reminisce on my career, and I'm sure that Fred will one day, I'll tell you the things that I remember. I definitely don't remember the individual career highs. I try not to remember too many of the individual career lows, still kind of hurt. But the things that I do remember are the bonds, those experiences, and of course, the memories that we created while going after goals bigger than ourselves. So maybe you spent the last few years, or maybe you're arriving to campus for the first time, or finishing up your first year here, with the wrong purpose. Don't worry, there's still time left. And I encourage everybody to just spend maybe 10 seconds thinking about those hard-to-answer questions. Where you want to go, who you want to be, what you want to accomplish, and of course, who you want to be there with. I promise that all of you will find that the answer is always more gratifying when it's spent on something that's bigger than just yourself. Thank you so much, and go blue.
Go blue. Hey guys.